It was June 14th, 1949. The Phillies, they were in Chicago. They had just clobbered the Cubs 9-2. The first baseman, Waitkus, he had a pretty good game. He got a hit and walked, scored 2 runs. By the end of the game, he was batting .306, not too shabby. So after the game, he and his teammates, they go back to the hotel, the Edgewater Beach Hotel. Eddie gets to his hotel room, and there's a note on the door. The note says, "Eddie, you ain't acquainted with me. And I know this is unusual, but it's really important that you talk with me. So please come to my room." Signed, Ruth Ann Burns. Now the thing is, Eddie didn't know anybody by the name of Ruth Ann Burns. Now, at the time, he was seeing this dame named Ruthie. He thought maybe this note came from the dame he was seeing, so figured, I'm gonna go see what this is all about. Well, that was a fateful decision that Eddie came to regret.
Welcome to Philadelphia Baseball History. On this channel, we talk about the history of baseball from the A's to the Phillies to the 19th century. And sometimes we talk about contemporary baseball issues. So if you love baseball and if you love Philadelphia, stick around and subscribe to our channel. How do you show your
Now in 1949, Eddie was 29 years old, and he had played for the Cubs for about 4 seasons. Everyone said, hey, Eddie's got a good glove. But he also started hitting. So by that time, for his career, he was getting close to 300. Meanwhile, in the early 1940s, the Phils, they stunk. And they had stunk for a long time. They were so bad that in 1943, the league forced the owner, one Gerald Nugent, to sell the team. At first, he sells it to the National League, and then the league sells it to a guy named William Cox. Now the problem there is that William Cox, he was betting on the baseball games. Now that commissioner guy, Landis, they created his position because of a gambling scandal. Remember the 1919 Black Sox, the one where they threw the World Series? That's why Landis came in the first place. So he wasn't about to let the Phillies owner get away with gambling. So he bans Cox for life and he forces him to sell the team. Now Cox sells the team to this guy who was related to the DuPont family, one Bob Carpenter. Now Carpenter, he had a different philosophy from all the Phillies owners before him. You see, all the owners before him, they figured they could squeeze more profits if they just cut costs. But Carpenter's like, nah, you gotta spend money if you want to make money. So he starts making investments in the team. He starts building up the farm system. He starts bringing people up from the minor leagues. He even looks to upgrade the Phillies stadium by moving them to Jersey. And sooner or later, these young players are coming up from the minor leagues, and they're pretty good, you know. You got Granny Hamner. You got Puddinhead Jones. You got that Del Ennis guy. You ever been to his bowling alley? Robin Roberts. You got that, what's his name, Whitey, that Richie Ashburn guy. They're all pretty good, right? Except the Phillies need a first baseman. So after the 1948 season, the Phillies arrange a trade with the Cubs so they can get their hot-hitting first baseman, Waitkus. So in walks this Ruth Ann Steinheck. Now in 1949, Ruth Ann was 19 years old. She had just moved out of her parents' house and was living on her own. But when she turned a teenager, puberty hit her pretty hard. The hormones were running and she began getting boy crazy. First she had this obsession with the actor Alan Ladd. Then she had an obsession with the Cubs outfielder Peanuts Lowry. Then Eddie Waitkus starts playing for the team. Now Ruth Ann said that she liked Eddie because she thought he was a clean-cut guy. Next thing you know, she's cutting out pictures from the newspaper, she's cutting out stories, she's building this like shrine in a bedroom to Eddie. She starts buying tickets to Wrigley Field so she can sit by first base and watch Eddie the whole game. At one point, Ruth Ann comes down to the living room. She's got all these pictures of Eddie, and she's just staring at the pictures of Eddie. She's like really obsessed. And her mother, Edith, she's like, Ruth Ann, I think you got a problem here. So she sends Ruth Ann to a shrink. But nothing really comes of it, and Ruth Ann comes home. And in December of 1948, well, she gets hit pretty hard when the Cubs traded Eddie away. You know what they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder? Well, in this case, I think being away from Eddie, it really affected her heart. I mean, Ruth Ann was so obsessed, she starts finding out all she can about Eddie. She finds out Eddie was born to Lithuanian immigrant parents, so she starts trying to learn Lithuanian. When she goes to the ballpark, she tries to hide outside the clubhouse, get a chance to see Eddie, maybe a chance to meet him, although they never meet up. So Ruth Ann Steinheck, she gets a job. She moves out of her parents' house. She's still obsessed with Eddie. So she goes to a pawn shop. She buys herself a .22 rifle. She tells the guy, I live alone, I want this for protection. And then she learns how to use it. She learns how to take it apart. She learns how to hide it. Then she learns that the Phillies, when they come to Chicago, they like to stay at the Edgewater Beach Hotel. So June 14, 1949 rolls around. Ruth Ann Steinheck rents a room at the Edgewater Beach Hotel. She writes that note that I told you about. She puts it on Eddie's hotel door. And then she goes to her hotel room. She waits. So Eddie reads the note, comes up to her room, and he goes inside. Now Steinheck, when she learned how to take the rifle apart, she put it in 2 pieces and put it in her travel bag. So when she went to check in at the Edgewater Beach Hotel, everyone was none the wiser. She actually brought a paring knife with her too. Her intent was to stab Eddie. So it's like 11 o'clock at night, and Eddie comes and knocks on the door. Steinheck lets him in. She's got the knife in her purse, except Eddie comes in too fast. He sits down. She doesn't have a chance to stab him. So she goes to the closet and she gets the rifle, and she shoots him. The bullet goes close to his heart. Now some say when she shot Eddie, she said something like, if I can't have you, nobody else can. Others say she shot Eddie because he reminded her too much of her father. Eddie's falling down. He's bleeding everywhere. So then this dame, she goes over to Eddie. She cradles his head as he's bleeding all over the carpet. She's trying to comfort him. She calls the front desk to let him know what she's done. She doesn't try to escape. I really hope she tipped the maid well, and she gets arrested. Meanwhile, Eddie's bleeding all over. He gets rushed to the hospital. He's got to do like half a dozen surgeries just to save his life, and he almost dies on the operating table. Now Eddie, he don't want to press charges, but the DA, they press charges anyway, and Ruth Ann Steinheck, she faces trial. But she's found not guilty by reason of insanity. She gets locked away into a mental institution, something like Byberry, except whatever Chicago's version of Byberry is. So Eddie recovers in time to come back for the 1950 season. And you know, in the 1950 season, that was the Whiz Kid season. That's the season the Phillies won the pennant. I mean, the Phillies were doing so good, the devil had to invest in a pocket to keep himself warm. And Eddie, he had a good season in 1950. He batted .284, scored 102 runs. He did so well, they gave him an award. I think it was called like the Comeback Player of the Year award. But here's the thing. Eddie was never the same again. It's like those guys go off the war, they come back, you know, they're still there, you still recognize them. Somehow they're different. Well, same thing for Eddie. Somehow he was different. I think they call it shell shock. So he stayed with the Phillies until 1953, but his batting average was declining. And in March of 1954, the Phillies sell his contract to the Baltimore Orioles. He plays with Baltimore for like a season and a half, and in July of 1955, Baltimore releases him. The Phillies pick him up, and he finishes the 1955 season with them. And then the Phillies release him at the end of the season in October of 1955. Never plays another game with the Major Leagues. See, the thing is, Eddie started drinking that way. He started drinking a lot. He was like an alcoholic. He was all depressed. Now by then he had gotten married, had a couple of kids. Well, his drinking led to him getting separated from his wife, Carol. Eddie had to go in the hospital, get his treatment, eventually gets released. He goes back to live in his hometown of Cambridge, Massachusetts. He stays there, he lives quietly until he dies at the VA hospital in 1972. Now Ruth Ann, she gets diagnosed with schizophrenia. She gets treated with like these electric shock therapies for like 3 years, right? Then after 3 years, she gets declared cured, she gets to go home. So Ruth Ann gets released from the asylum, she goes back to live with her parents. When her parents die, she lives with her sister, and she dies in 2012. Now the story might sound familiar. Sounds kind of like that Stephen King guy in that book he wrote, Misery, right? The story was also loosely the basis of a book called The Natural. It was made into a movie that Robert Redford starred in. And eventually, more people started paying attention to this problem of stalking. Stalking became a federal crime. So there you have it. That's the story of Eddie Waitkus and his stalker, Ruth Steinheck. What you think of the story? Did you like it? Give us a thumbs up. Tell your friends about us. And don't forget to subscribe so you can come back and watch some more stories about Philadelphia baseball. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any ideas for topics that we can cover in the future, please let us know in the comments below. If you would like to see more of these videos, please consider becoming a patron through Patreon. Again, we'll have a link in the description box below.